Hi folks. So I'm moving on to the next costume now, and this one is quite a bit more complex than the baby costume that I did last time. I'm going to be making the Wrath of Khan original series movie costume, but I'm making it for my wife. There's Novos makes a really good replica, but it's for men. And there's a pattern out there for a woman's one, but I don't know how good it is. Sometimes those patterns are good and sometimes they're not. But I actually thought it would be easier just to do it from scratch. And I'm going to do it very simply. I'm not going to put a liner in it or anything because the hope is to get it done in like 2 days. I went to the thrift store the other day and got this woman's suit that fit Susanne really well, and basically did the same thing that I did with the baby costume, where I just put the lines on it where it's going to cut. Some of the seams, like the shoulder, match up to where the actual seam will be.
And then you added the lines where there's an additional.
Yeah, so I'm going to do this the same way. I'm going to cut it up and transfer the pieces to cardboard, and then we'll go from there.
Easy, you're ruining that jacket.
Yeah, she put this on and said, "Oh, it's kind of nice. Maybe I should keep it." No, you're not gonna wear this. All right, so everything's cut, and I laid it out on the board just like I did before. Remember, you gotta leave kind of a cushion between all the pieces because you're gonna add a seam allowance. Just a quick note: I've simplified the pattern a little bit because the actual sleeve, the sleeve of this suit jacket is kind of similar to the way the sleeve is of the actual uniform. It's actually joined here, and these two pieces are attached. But the reason I'm splitting it down the center is because, like I said, the easiest way to sew a garment is just to sew the sleeve on and just close the garment right there. This is super easy, and like I can do it in a few hours. So I'm going to trace these on here now and clean them up, add the seam allowance, and then we'll check in again. Okay, so I traced all the pieces on here and added a half-inch seam allowance like I always do.
These are much more elaborate looking than the baby costume.
Yeah, it is. And there's a couple of things I want to make note of. Usually when you're kind of freehanding a pattern, there's a general rule, like when you have two pieces that are going to come together, it's best to kind of have them join at a 90-degree angle here with the corners. It'll just make everything easier. So when I do curves, like this is 90 degrees, then it curves and then joins this at 90 degrees, this is 90. I mean, in general, it just makes your patterns easier to sew together. A couple other things. I made a mistake here. That suit jacket was much shorter than the actual Wrath of Khan jacket, and I had put a mark on here to add a plus 1.5 because that's what I measured. So I added 1.5 inches just to the length of the jacket, and then the cuff at the bottom, rather than adding a ½ inch, I added 1 full inch. And I do that with things like the base of the sleeve and the bottom of the jacket because when you're making a garment, those are kind of things that you might need to adjust, and so it's good to have, I think, a little bit of extra room.
So it gives you an opportunity to do a fitting and then make an adjustment.
Yeah, because if it was just a ½ inch, that's not much to work with. So I added like an inch to cuffs or stuff at the bottom. So I got my pattern pieces cut, and I've laid it out on my fabric. Now, I was all ready to do a budget Wrath of Khan uniform with a material over here. I just found this like knit fabric. It was really cheap at Joann's, but I went to a fabric store here in LA that's known for having some of the fabrics from the Star Trek TV shows and movies, and I happened to find the actual stuff. This is wool elastique. It's got a really unique twill pattern here. I'll cut these out on here, and then I will sew together some sub-assemblies. So why don't I cut these out and then we'll check it again. Alright, so it's a good thing I had some extra material because I had to cut another one of these out. The first one I did, I made somewhat of a mistake. I decided I was just going to serge these pieces together, but when you do that with wool material like this, the seam is really like kind of prominent and bubbly looking, and on the actual uniform it was kind of flat. So instead of serging this, I just finished the edges because again I'm not going to line this, so I don't want the whole thing unraveling on the inside, and then just just stitched it together and then pressed it flat. Yeah, so I did this one as well, and I'll just iron the seam flat. Alright, I'll do these and then move on to the next step.